first and foremost, let's just dig in, Rose, a little bit as to what it's been like since the election. How have you found Blue Sky? The numbers racking up, are people using it? How your infrastructure has been slightly taxed?
Thanks for having me, Caroline. Since the election, we've seen more than 10 million U.S. users join Blue Sky. And it's been very exciting for us because up until now, we've seen global growth from Japan in February, from Brazil in April and August. And now we're seeing the growth happening in the U.S., UK, Canada, because I think people are tired of a platform that controls what they see, and they don't like a platform that's partisan.
Don't like partisanship, but let's talk about infrastructure. And with that sudden growth of users internationally and here in the US, servers have been strained a little bit. How much have you had to boost your own support systems?
The engineers have been working around the clock to make sure that the app stays online. And what we're very proud of is that the infrastructure has not had significant downtime in the time that we've had all this influx of new users, because our protocol was built for scale. When we first built our protocol, we were actually building it for Twitter as our customer, because back then Jack wanted to open up Twitter so that others could build on it, users could have choice. That was the promise. Of course, things changed when X changed hands, and so we went and built our own app to showcase what we believe that social should look like.
Rose, I'm wondering what all of this influx of new users has done for you financially. You just closed a Series A, I believe, in October. There was a report last month that there's been a lot of interest in maybe more investors coming in to Blue Sky. Have you started looking at possibly raising even more money to, keep up with this growth?
Right now, we're focused on our end user. We have so many new people coming to the platform, and what they care about is, are we having fun? Are we making friends again? And do we feel safe? And so that is what the team is focused on. We're also launching subscriptions at the end of this year because we see so many people who want to support us, and we want to give users tools to help them self-express more. So that's like more custom icons, longer video uploads, but we would never put speech behind a paywall. So nothing that is a core functionality you would have to pay for.
And speaking of those core users, you have benefited, as Caroline pointed out, from the election, from, I think, a lot of people leaving X. They're no longer feeling like they are getting what they want from X. It's kind of created this label of Blue Sky as the anti-Elon network, or maybe a more left-leaning network. How do you feel about that label? Do you feel like that's sort of what you're going for, or is that just people sort of projecting onto you guys?
I think that there's always a reaction when something happens, an event, but we'll see the narrative change over time because, like I said, beforehand, we've had Japanese users, Brazilian users, Korean users, people from all over the world come to Blue Sky. So to say that it's a US-centric, left-leaning app is not correct. We're also not building an app for one voice or one type of political viewpoint. What we've built is an open infrastructure for any person who has interesting viewpoints, who wants to have engaging conversation, to come to Blue Sky and then go build their own space, whether that's their own feed or their own political labeler that users can subscribe to either turn off political content or to turn it back on, depending on their mood.
Rose, I know this is really real time, but you mentioned Korean users. Are you seeing an awful lot of activity today, given the news on martial law? How much are you seeing journalists flock to the platform and people wanting to know?
I believe we had our first breaking news happen on Blue Sky, where one of the reporters, Sarah Jong, is reporting live from Korea, and she's only posting on Blue Sky. And so I think we're starting to see that Blue Sky is the place for things that are happening currently. Where do you talk about it? On Blue Sky, because people feel safe. There's all sorts of guards against not only misinformation, but also speculative information, because users can go and label that piece of post without waiting on the central authority or a parent company like us.
I'm wondering, as you see, state-affiliated media, for example, in Russia, North Korea, China, start to come on to Blue Sky. Historically, platforms have labeled those media, right? Have sort of, in some cases, cut down on their ability to advertise or things like that. Have you thought about how you're going to deal with state-affiliated media organizations in some of these more, controversial countries?
The way that we've built social is that we've given the toolbox to users to go and decide how they want to experience content and how they want to interact with other people. And so currently, the way that we care about the end user is that they're our primary citizen. So we're not so worried about heads of states or brands in terms of trying to serve them first. We're really trying to serve the end user first, which means that we're giving end users the tools to go and decide how they want to take in the news or how they want to interact with different accounts. When it comes to different heads of states, what we care about is that they want to follow the rules of our terms of service and community guidelines, and then we also have different jurisdictions, geofencing for different countries, much like other social media platforms.
Let's talk about those rules and the way in which you interact on Blue Sky, because you're having to think about moderation, you're having to think about trust and safety. In fact, some of the money, the $15 million raise, was earmarked for that. Rose, how are you managing to crack down on content that you don't want to see on the platform?
First of all, I think it's important that you just put trust and safety as a priority. Most social media platforms put growth ahead of trust and safety is just something that they have to do. It's a checkbox. That's totally different on Blue Sky. When you have a network that's run by two women who've been on the internet for decades and experienced the internet as women, we've prioritized safety. What does that look like? It looks like we didn't have invite codes, or we had invite codes last year because we weren't ready to open up a network before we had a moderation team. The other way that we've thought about moderation is we thought about it in terms of stackable moderation, which only the the central company only has a certain amount of controls that they can go do to help diverse communities. And central authorities tend to act very slowly. And like I said, there's so much information between toxic misinformation or hate speech and things that make people unhappy on social. And so what we've done is give those controls back to users so they can either go label rude posts, speculative information, and other users can subscribe to those labels and not wait for us to make those decisions. And that's what we mean by opening up social and making it more democratic, where you don't have to wait for us, you can build.
Rose, we spent a lot of the conversation talking about how global this network is. Right now, I believe you are in San Francisco, headquartered in San Francisco. Is that the long-term plan for you? Is there any world in which Blue Sky would actually, relocate, maybe move to Europe or somewhere else for headquarters for either regulatory reasons or even, to avoid a confrontation with an Elon Musk or a Donald Trump or someone like that?
Well, Blue Sky is actually remote, and so the team is quite global. We have people in Europe, in Asia, in the US, and so I think it's really important that the team looks like the users. And so we want to continue to be a remote team and to be able to be reactive to the different needs of our global audience.